Because
trials and errors make us strong if we learn how to just move on and not give in. When we fall, falling down and getting up, when we will not be stuck in the places where we fall. We must see that there's so much to be. Keep on living through the trials we will see. Becoming who we'll be, it's not that hard if we can see. We've got to keep growing and not get stuck. Becoming you and me, we will become who we will be if we just hold on and not give up. We'll keep becoming. Oh, yeah. When we fall down, we must get up. We cannot get stuck in no rut, for then we'll see it's really not that bad. Many times we find ourselves caught up in all kinds of mess, and that's the plan that we'll give up. Oh, but we must see that there's so much to be. Keep on living through the trials we will see. Becoming who we'll be, it's not that hard if we can see. We've got to keep growing and not get stuck. Becoming you and me, we will become who we will be if we just hold on and not give up. Becoming who we'll be, it's not that hard if we can see. We gotta keep growing and not get stuck. Becoming you and me, we will become who we will be if we just hold on and not give up. We'll keep becoming, oh, becoming. We'll keep becoming, oh, becoming. To be, not quite what I will be becoming. I'll keep becoming. Said I'm not what I used to be. Not what I used to be. Not quite what I will be becoming. I'll keep becoming. I'm not what I used to be. Not what I used to be. Not quite what I will be becoming. I'll keep becoming. Said I'm not what I used to be. Not what I used to be. Not quite what I will be becoming. I'll keep becoming. I'm not what I used to be. Not what I used to be. Not quite what I will be becoming. I'll keep becoming. Not what I used to be. Not quite what I will be becoming. I'll keep becoming. We must see that there's so much to be. Keep on living through the trials. We will see. We will see that there's so much to be. Keep on living through the trials. We will see. We will see that there's so much to be. Keep on living through the trials. We will see. We'll keep becoming. Yes, you and me will be becoming. Great, wonderful evening to each and every one of you. Happy New Year's Eve. Here we are on the last night of 2020, and you are choosing to spend a little bit of time with me here in the Soul Situations Room. I am your host, the Reverend Shonda Nicole Gladden, and I am just elated and excited that you are choosing to spend a little bit of your New Year's Eve time with me. So jump on into the comment space and let me know where you are watching from tonight. Please give us some comments. Let us know where you are watching us from tonight in the comment section so that we can be engaged with you here in this space. So, what do we have on deck for you tonight? I'm so glad you asked. Actually, tonight I am excited to be able to be in conversation with someone who has known me literally all of my life. Before I was formed in this person's womb, as the scripture would say, we're having a conversation with my mom, Ms. Deborah Hawkins, Wright. But before we get into that conversation with my mom, I want you to know, stick around until the end because we have a very special announcement for you at the end of tonight's broadcast. So, who is here? Let me know where you are. I don't see your comments, but I do see that you're watching because I see a lot of little faces or a lot of little eyeballs looking back at me, but I don't see your comments. So let me know who you are and where you're watching from. Tonight, we're having a special conversation, as I said, with someone who is near and dear to me. So if you missed last night, I do hope that you will subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks so much, Wanda McCombs Byrne in Maryland. Welcome to the Soul Situations Room. I do hope that you stick around so that you can be in conversation with our guests for the night. The rest of you, let me know you're there. I can't make sure that we have a good room if you don't let me know that you are there. All right, I see you, Elijah and Aunt Pam down in Waldorf, Maryland. Thanks for letting me know that you are chiming in as you all are spending the last few hours before you head into chapters 55 and chapter 16. I've been keeping up with y'all today. Thanks so much for watching. Michael McClendon is at home. Bless you, brother Michael McClendon. Good to see you. Haven't seen you probably in a good couple of years. I hope you are doing well there at home and that you are being safe. I don't know about you, but many people tonight in the African American tradition and the Black church tradition are gearing up for or planning to be in watch night services. Now, this is not a watch night service. I do want to let you know that. But what exactly is watch night? Well, I'm so glad you asked. That typically, since the beginning of after the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation en route to the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation, enslaved Africans spent this last night of the year hoping and waiting in anticipation that the day of January 1st, they would receive news that they would be free. Now, that's one narrative, but the narrative that I love that was penned, made popular today by Reverend Dr. Ebony Marshall Turman, as she shared a great article that's posted up on my page if you have not already taken a look at it. And that is that on December 31st, instead of waiting to see if the enslaved Africans, if they would be freed, the enslaved Africans were developing their strategy for what would happen the next day, arming themselves literally as well as spiritually for what would come on the next day, that they were going to declare and demand their freedom by any means necessary. If it wasn't given to them with the signing of a pen, they were going to take it with authority, with the armed battery if necessary. Well, many of you know the history. You saw on Emancipation Day, January the 1st, that the proclamation was signed by President Abraham Lincoln. And that began the beginning of a journey, if you will, towards freedom for enslaved Africans. Now, whichever narrative you choose to hold on to for why watch night is significant for you, many of us are poised to enter into 2021 being free of our failures, free of our complications, but really over taking inventory of what has happened over the past 366 days. Because I think this was a leap year. Was it 364 days? Whatever the number is, if we had a leap year, that we want to spend time making sure that we're taking inventory, writing the vision of what's going to happen for the next 365 days. And so tonight, I'm excited to be able to do that kind of inventory work with my mom, because she's not only a great vessel through which God has given me into this universe, but Mrs. Deborah Hawkins Wright, again, my mom, is the founder of Inside Out Loving You Life Strategies. She is a transformational leader who uses human dynamics approaches to highlight and emphasize the importance of developing people's interpersonal and soft skills. You all may find that humorous, because many of you who work with me know that sometimes people say, you lack the soft skills that make you a good pastor. You can have a sharp tongue. Well, we're going to have a conversation about what the real soft skills are that make people able to transform their lives and engage in the world around them in helpful and life-giving ways when they love themselves from the inside out. Mrs. Deborah Hawkins Wright brings to the table well-organized, systematic, and agile approaches to build consensus and manage integration of organizational goals. She possesses significant transferable skills from past professions in law, marketing, IT, and business administration, and she holds a Bachelor of Science in Computer Information Systems and a Master of Arts in Human Dynamics. She is a certified associate in project management. In 2018, she launched Inside Out Loving You Life Strategies Consulting to facilitate workshops and talks that examine the psychology of personal transformation for self and others. She is a wife, a mother, nana, and the eldest sister in a family of love. So, friends, without further ado, I want to introduce you to my mom, Mrs. Deborah Hawkins Wright. Hello, Mom.
Hello, daughter. How are you?
I am all right. How are you?
I am doing well, thank you.
Well, before we get started, I want to let you know that we also, in addition to Aunt Pam and Elijah, our cousin Carol, Carol is joining in and tuning in from Fort Washington, Maryland. So we want to say, hey, cousin Carol. Mother, and I also want to say Habari Gani.
Ah, Kumba.
Kuumba indeed, creativity. On this sixth night of Kwanzaa, I think it is really, really interesting because Kuumba means creativity. In particular, it's about always doing as much as we can in the way we can in order to leave our community more beautiful and beneficial than we inherited it. And so I find it really, really interesting that on this sixth night of Kwanzaa, where we think about Kuumba, that I'm having a conversation with you because I'm curious about how did creativity kind of come to bear as you thought about launching Inside Out Loving You Life Strategies back in 2018?
Thank you so much for giving me a chance to talk about that because I've been pushing full steam ahead since about June 2018. But to stop and think about what prompted it is really very important. You know, to breathe life into an idea, you must first inspire people to see your vision. And I'm so grateful, first and foremost, for my husband, James Wright, who has walked with me through this journey for more than 17 years. But then when it came to Inside Out Loving You, I had to seek his permission to use our very meager resources to launch this idea. Now, the how of giving birth to this idea is interesting because it was born out of pain. In 2018, when my father passed, I found myself in a situation where I learned things about my very, very close circle that I never would have imagined would have been in their hearts and minds as relate to me. And so, in the process of trying to reconcile all of that in my soul rather than be broken by it, I had to rely upon my recently completed degree in human dynamics to look at all of the psychological tools that were at my disposal to really do the work on myself first. So I only started as a self transformation journey.
Well, thanks. So I think a lot of the greatest ideas that people come up with, they do begin with, as you said, a self transformation journey. That how can we do anything that's going to be transformative in the world until if we have not yet already done something transformative within our own selves? And so I think that is so interesting that you talk about that. And even in the name of your company, Inside Out, loving you. I remember that growing up, that there was this song about inside out, inside out. You must serve your Jesus from the inside out. Miss Kendall, whom I had on the other night as one of my mentors,
Yeah.
she taught that to a youth choir that I sang with as part of one of our annual conferences for our denomination. But that, if it does not begin inside, and it does not take root inside, it really can't be sustainable, right? It can't be lasting.
It really can't. Inside out literally means that what you do with your mind impacts your heart, and what you do from your heart impacts how you interact with the world around you. Now, when you look at that from a human dynamics perspective, you have to really dig deep into your core and examine, well, who am I? Who is my authentic self? Who am I at my core? How are the things that have always been a part of me critical to understanding who I am in this moment?
So I'm glad that you said that. Now I'm curious about all of the things or who you are, what has been a part of you. Let's talk about that. What has been a part of you? What has been your life journey that has led you to this place where we find ourselves now? Talk about how did you grow up?
It's quite an interesting story. The day that is most significant to me, that starts my conscious understanding of who I am, it began on November 22nd, 1963, when I turned 7 years old. On that day, the President of the United States, who at that time was John Kennedy, was assassinated. And so, as a young child, I watched the Black community take in the devastation of losing a leader that was so instrumental in pushing forward an agenda that eventually led to civil rights, to a strong and powerful, and though not complete, but certainly necessary first steps towards civil rights. And so I am that person who has marched, who has been before large crowds, large audiences, advancing an agenda of Black power. My whole thing is developing content by the people, that would be me, for the people, to empower the people. And that has really marked my life. I'm a child of earth, wind, and fire, always seeking to gain an insight into my inner self so that, I can keep my head to the sky and do all of the things that make us aware of who we are spiritually. Though growing up in the Methodist tradition, finding myself spiritually has been uh, quite an exercise. And it's a wonderful thing. I'm so grateful to have reached this year, my 64th year. And amazingly, starting from age 7, working through the teens, working through my young adult period. I was at Morgan State when I was 16 years old because I graduated high school early so that I could leave my small town. And so landed at Morgan State University, had the chance to dabble into singing with Dr. Carter, but chose to be a pom pom girl instead with the, with the band. And my passion has always been theater. And so I was a thespian at Morgan State University, a great group of people. But all of that launched my journey to travel to New York to perform off Broadway, and then to look down at my daughter while standing at the corner of Fifth Avenue near Central Park, seeing the cars whiz by and say, this isn't for us. I need to take you to a place where you can have a more wholesome upbringing, something more akin to who we are traditionally. And so we left New York, and that's when I began to take my education seriously because I had a child to provide for. And so, in order to grow professionally, I had to be intellectually stimulated.
Yeah.
And
So, no, go ahead.
that's essentially it. I could go on and on. You know, the journey through academics, I've had mentors, I've had people who've supported me. I worked in law firms while pursuing my bachelor's degree. And then I went on to do a number of other things that were the direct result of my instructors determining that my gift of gab would make me really good at marketing in the tech industry because that was my passion. Technology. I remember when the internet first started. Oh,
So I'm chuckling because my child Zuri is always saying you are old, but when you just say you remember the internet when it first started, that made me feel like yes, we really are probably old. Do you remember like AOL and Messenger and AIM and having to listen to that sound as the dial-up began joining
yes,
on? And look at us now. We're
exactly.
in two
I
different
remember
parts of the
starting from
country.
a C prompt. I remember starting from a C prompt where I had to type in the program that I wanted to use in order to open it, where DOS was my operating system. So, yes, we go way back with the technology. You remember our first computer in Greenbelt. We've always had a computer around us since it became a part of the world that we live in, but we've come a long way since that little black and white monochrome monitor on a desk in a spare room.
Yeah, so I'm curious, we've come a long way in terms of technology, but we've also probably come a long way in terms of theology. So, do you mind? I know we're talking about Inside Out Loving You. And of course, I want to give you an opportunity to tell people what it is that you do with Aioli. Let's pause there before we pivot to the next piece of the conversation and how to get in touch with you if they do want to utilize your services.
Aioli is always available. I do most of my work via our Facebook page at Aioli Event. And there I do a number of posts that are designed to inspire and encourage. I have a website, insideoutlove.org. From there, you will find links that allow you to get in touch with me to kind of learn more about my background and what it is I bring to the table. Right now, I'm facilitating workshops primarily for Black and Brown women where we look at a number of issues that are important to us, particularly as relates to the psychology of personal transformation. And so that goes into quite a bit, a little more than we want to get into tonight, but I'll be happy if you send me an email at contact at Inside Out Love. I can design programs for businesses around themes that are important to do what I said I do in the beginning, and that is help organizations to develop soft skills. That's essentially it. You know, I have a formula that I live by. Cultural intelligence is equal to the level of emotional intelligence and intellectual awareness that you bring to the table. And so, working within that formula, I help organizations to look at the team dynamic, to move the team dynamic. On a personal level, though, I do workshops for Black and Brown women so that we can come together and learn how trauma impacts our lives, so that we can understand microaggressions and all of the psychological undertones that are so real in our day-to-day lives. And we take it for granted and often look inward as if something is wrong with us, when in actuality, we're living in a world where we need a new script to navigate, one that takes into consideration and understanding of the psychology of how we have become the women that we see when we look in the mirror.
So is this the right Facebook that's on the screen, facebook.com/Aioli events? And
That
if
is correct.
people want to get in touch with you, it's contact@insideoutlove.org.
That is correct.
So you talk about the narrative of who we are and how trauma impacts our narratives. Do you mind if we talk a little bit about our narrative as mother and daughter, and how trauma has impacted that even?
I welcome it because I am so grateful to the God of my formation that we have reached a point where we can sit and have this conversation, knowing that both of us are in healthy spaces where we are doing the work to overcome the trauma that has marked us. Because, first of all, we have to consider that trauma is generational. And if you consider that trauma is generational, we can consider what my therapist said upon meeting me. She said, Deborah, a big part of what you're experiencing is a function of you being a Black woman in America. And I knew I was in the right place. Now, why is that the case? Because we have, number one, your life represented 5 first generations of women on my mother's side of the family. And I knew my great great grandmother, whose husband was a tobacco farmer, at the end of Jim Crow, actually. She had a farm, she had a place where we could come to, but I knew her life, which was just coming out of slavery in Southern Maryland for the most part. And so there are a number of things that were a part of her subconscious that were passed on to her children. That would be my grandmother and my great uncle and great aunt, which in turn were passed on to their children, my mother, my aunts, and which in turn from them were passed on to me. So you have to consider, what was society experiencing as each one of these generations was finding a way to thrive and survive whatever was going on in the world as a result of the color of our skin. And so within the context of all of that, my mother, God rest her soul, my mother was a psychiatric nursing assistant. And she went to work when many women did not work, but that was her passion. But she was also a victim of domestic abuse, as well as victimized by society in a number of other ways that I will never dishonor her memory by bringing up in a public setting. But suffice it to say that life ain't been no crystal stair, to quote James Baldwin. But My mother left me with her mother, or rather, my father left me with my mother's mother. And so my grandmother and my aunts raised me and my siblings. And so, of course, once I had a child out of wedlock, though not the plan, uh, I found that a set of circumstances and traumas in my life, ranging in everything from uh, rape to substance abuse to attacks on my integrity and my self esteem and my character in all kinds of settings, being the victim of bullies and on and on. The reason I left my small town so soon at such a young age, at 16, to venture out into the world, all of these things made me think that number one, I wasn't prepared to be a mother. Number two, grandmother took care of me so I could leave my child with grandmother. And when grandmother couldn't keep my child, it was okay for me to leave my child with daddy because after all, we both were responsible for bringing her into the world. So I thought it was okay. But I have since learned that that kind of abandonment cycle has to be broken now. Because what I did to my child by leaving her in places and not knowing anything other than the surface of what was going on in her life was unfair to her and created in her a strength and a brokenness. And that has to do with what we come from, what our legacy is, the strength. I have a book that is my first effort. It is the poetic biography of a sixth generation journey of faith. And it's a compilation of poems that tell the stories about the different things that each generation has gone through. And I know in one case, I often wonder, well, can you see me? Do you understand my heart's plea to you? Because we were going through so much and I felt so separated from you. But I've always loved you. And that's the key.
Yeah, love is definitely the key. I've always loved you too, even though, I may not have always known how to communicate it, particularly through the years of teenage angst. And, in hindsight, thinking about, as you've said, and as my therapist has said, and probably your therapist has said, the impact of abandonment on my formation and my ability to hold on to healthy connections, right? But the good thing is, who knew that God was going to call me to itinerant ministry in the AME church? Because that those experiences of abandonment and not making connections and being able to pick up and move on, they've been very helpful because, I still stay in touch with many of my members as I've been moved from church to church or as I have moved throughout our Zion. But I really believe that my pastoral experience has been well equipped because of the role of being moved from various house to house growing up. So, what the enemy would mean for evil, God meant for good.
Yes.
I'd like to characterize, our relationship that way and the ways that your mothering has prepared me for where I am now. I think that is very, very helpful way to frame it, that God still gets the glory, right?
He does. He does. He gets the glory and he gets the honor and the praise. I am most pleased at the man that I chose to be your father because
Me too.
thank you, because that is critical. I had a conversation with your grandmother recently where I acknowledged that, of course, I could have been the mother of other children, but I could only be the mother of a child whose soul I could, in any way that God saw fit, be responsible for. And so we sowed good seed by becoming an extension of that family, the Gladden family. our combining those two legacies has been critical to your formation, and over time has really contributed much to the woman I am and the man that he is. And so God does work it all out. I never told anyone this story, but I will share it with you. It's not rated, I don't think. On the night that you were conceived, I had an out of body experience.
Wait, you're talking about conception, and that means you're talking about that thing. I don't want to
But
hear
I
it.
I tell you that because the fact that it was a spiritual experience tells me that your life was always meant to be something spiritual and important to all of us. To all of us. And so, it is what it is. You have to go back to the origins of things. That's the one thing I've learned at this point in life. In the small things, we find the miracles in life, the little things. And we often are so busy and moving so fast, which is why mindfulness, which is a part of what we do with Aioli, mindfulness is so important. We must be in the moments that we're in at the time that we're in them, not thinking ahead to what's going to come out of it or what it's going to manifest to or where did it come from. Is it a good idea? Are there other things that are related to? No. This moment, right now, what's happening? If I'm speaking to you, then I believe that the God of my formation is directing my heart and my spirit, and what I am sharing is worthwhile because I also live by the uniquely made doctrine. God made each of us, one of us, unique, no other like us in the world. And so, in following the uniquely made doctrine, we must trust that everything that we represent, as long as it fits within the Beatitudes, as long as it fits within the fruit, we have to trust that it is indeed where we're supposed to be and what we're supposed to be sharing at that moment.
Yeah. So the comment section is just going off the chart. People are in agreement with you, even though I did cut you off without you talking about your out of body experience. So go
That's
ahead.
okay. You were supposed to. I understand.
But so you talk about living in the moment and being in the moment. And I think people who know me really well, but maybe have never met you, I think watching the broadcast right now, they may be saying, oh my goodness, I can see where Shonda gets that from, that where the origin is, because you're the OG, you're the original. I'm just a copy, if you will. And so from last night until tonight, we get this beautiful picture, I think, of the ingredients that have come to make who I am. So I have thoroughly enjoyed the broadcast. I hope that others have as well. But we're nearing the almost the end, where I need to ask you the question.
Yeah.
You've watched the Soul Situations broadcast, so
Yeah.
you know that I ask every guest this one question. How do you define flourishing? So how do you define flourishing? What does flourishing look like?
Everything for me goes back to inside out, loving you and applying all of those practices to your life so that you can develop a strategic approach to arriving at and living your best life. Inside out loving you is also biblical. Romans 12:2 in the Message Bible says, don't become so well adjusted to your culture that you fit into it without even thinking. Instead, fix your attention on God. You'll be changed from the inside out. And embracing that scriptural context is what I consider flourishing. Don't get stuck in dogma. Always ask questions. Always seek your higher self and understand the importance of the great I am. The great I am, it means so much. It speaks to the origin of the Father, but it also speaks to what is inside of you. So embrace it, hold on to it, strive to be your best self, and love you above everything. Be gentle with yourself. That's flourishing, where you don't hold on to anything that makes you stay in a place that's uncomfortable or contrary to your nature. You don't stay around people, you don't stay in circles, you don't do things that are contrary to the feel good in your core. Flourish.
I love it. I especially love that portion of the verse that you just read. Fix your face. Now, I know there was a lot more that came after that, but fix your
Yes.
face. Fix
Yes.
your face. And I'm telling my friends that often, sometimes in jest, but a lot of times in sincerity, that there could be a whole lot of things going on around us. But if we fix our face, as the scripture says, on who God is and what God desires of us from the inside out, then we
Yes.
will indeed flourish. I love that. I absolutely love that. But every now and then, sometimes we'll turn our face up and just allow ourselves to be filled with a downcast countenance. And if we're not careful, we can hold on to all of the ugliness that the world tries to put upon us. But we
Yes.
have to be intentional, right?
Yes. Yes.
Intentional. So thinking,
Methodical and intentional.
yeah, because we're Methodists. So there's the method to everything that we do.
And I'm a project manager, and so for me there's a process that goes with a successful outcome. No matter what you're doing, everything in life is a project. There are
Yeah.
sequential steps. There are things that you have to do, that you have to follow in order to ensure you get the outcome that you desire. And in many cases, if you keep your faith intact, as you've indicated, it will be what God desires of you as well.
Mhm. Yeah. So, and I know we're running out of time, but you said something just now that I really want to probe a little bit deeper. If you keep your faith intact, can we talk about what has it meant to keep our faith intact? And has that been a constant, something that has been easy, something that has been okay? You're nodding and shaking and rocking, so I'm going to
I'm
stop
sorry.
talking. No, no, no. That felt like that was a revving up, like you were ready to jump on in there. So go.
I am, because I've been suffering from a crisis of faith for the last several years, where I look at, we are number one, we are from a family of theologians, knowing and unknowing. We have ministers, we have gospel singers, we have people who have been driven by faith all of their lives. And so we were programmed to accept God in a way that was pertinent to the various people who were in charge of us. And so this crisis of faith that I've been undergoing, it's not so much that there is something going on in the church that is not right for me, because the church has defined me and is always right for me. It is a place for fellowship where I know I can find like-minded people who, for the most part, have like-minded goals. But from a young age, I was drawn to Buddhism. I wanted to go to chant and to be a part of that idea of faith. But the church and my family cast it in an evil or a negative light that forced me to deviate from that. So now, all these years later, here I am, for the most part, in many ways, a practicing Buddhist in many ways. And it's not uh, counter to my faith as an African Methodist woman. It's not counter at all. As a matter of fact, it has broadened, it has extended my understanding of what faith means in my life. Because through Buddhism, I get to meditate, I get to chant, I get to practice yoga, I get to understand the importance of my chakras. I get to understand Namaste or Namaste, which is the divine in me recognizes the divine in you. And I get to embrace those concepts and live a life that is not limited just by Christian uh, Christian ideas, Christian ideologies.
Mm.
There is so much more that is an extension of that. Right now, I'm into meditating and looking at vibrational frequencies and how we as humans who are made of the very things that make up the universe are connected through our heart's electromagnetic waves to something that is greater, and it all feeds into Aioli as well. Aioli isn't something that you want to take into the church because you may hear something that you don't want to hear. It may be contrary to your dogma. And so Aioli usually functions in secular spaces where people are free to think and be whoever they want to be. I have a vast circle of supporters that range from Muslim to Jewish to Christian to Buddhist. It takes all ideas of love to complete our understanding of love.
So Aioli is very much a practice, a principle or principles that are interfaith, that looks at love through a number of different lenses that may or may not ascribe to the one God, if you will, or the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But it sounds like there's also a kind of appreciation for African cosmology and the spiritual
Yes.
meditative practices that may be
Yes.
a part of one's experience or one's formation that is outside of the church walls. And to some, that may sound, especially on here we are on watch night. What kind of spirits
Yes.
are we talking about? I can hear the church people now, but
I can
as
see them falling off.
but as an ordained elder in a mainline denomination that is
Yes.
Methodist in its polity, I can
Yes.
still say that this is not outside the scope of
No.
what the divine expectations are for those of us who are followers of the way of Jesus. But
That's
so
right.
often we allow ourselves to be restricted and boundary markers to be made within the Western interpretation and the Western understanding of how Christianity ought to be experienced and expressed. Maddie
Yes.
E. Sullivan says, my husband and I practiced Buddhism with our older children many years ago. I have always felt that God isn't limited except by man. And so here we are on the last day of 2020, and I'm even feeling the Spirit of God just descending upon me even now. I'm feeling God's presence upon me in such a way that I'm believing God say, yes, this is what I need the people to hear in this moment. Now, I'm not trying to tell anyone be converted to Buddhism. God forbid.
No.
I don't want to
No.
fall in the way of the faith, but to expand our understanding of the ways that we can connect to who God is, and that Christian meditative practices, they are a thing. That
Yes.
being able to be intentional with our spiritual vocation and our spiritual vocabulary, so much
Yes.
so that we don't limit who God is for us and how we access the things of God, but that we are very intentional to welcome God in all the ways that God would reveal God's self to us.
You are absolutely right. And I heard you say a moment ago, we're running out of time, but to kind of pull together all that we've just said, I'd like to share with you something from Marianne Williamson. Love
Sure,
isn't seen, huh? May
sure. Go
I?
ahead.
Love isn't seen with the physical eyes or heard with physical ears. The physical senses can't perceive it. It's perceived through another kind of vision. Metaphysicians call it the third eye. Esoteric Christians call it the vision of the Holy Spirit, and others call it the higher self. Regardless of what it's called, love requires a different kind of seeing than we're used to, a different kind of knowing or thinking. Love is the intuitive knowledge of our hearts. It's a world beyond that we all secretly long for. An ancient memory of this love haunts all of us all the time and beckons us to return. That's from Marianne Williamson, A Return to Love. And I hold on to that because it encapsulates everything from a spiritual perspective that Inside Out Loving You represents.
Thank you so much for that. I love Marianne Williamson. I remember the Marianne Williamson quote that Nelson Mandela speaks of when he was being confirmed as the president of South Africa. So I deeply appreciate Marianne Williamson. And so thank you so much. Now, our cousin Wanda, she says, Shonda, I love how you are open to other thoughts and possibilities, you being a minister and all. And so on this last night of 2020, I want to encourage us to read from some people who are part of the faith, that there are some books that I would recommend. And hopefully someone is there who can type these in, because I don't even have the pictures to put up on front of us. But I would encourage those of us who are interested in digging deeper into Christian meditative practices, to think back to like Teresa of Avila, who was a mystic back in the early church days, where she talked about the interior life, which is very much a part of what you're talking about when you
Yes,
begin speaking about what it means to be in touch with our chakras. She didn't call them chakras, but she talked
that's
about
right.
the interior life and the ways that one could access a divine experience by tracking the interior life. And she is considered one of the early church mothers, if you will, Teresa of Avila. I also
Mhm.
think of Howard Thurman, the great Christian mystic, whose books Dr. Martin Luther King, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., is said to have carried with him on a regular basis throughout the civil rights movement that he was very instrumental in, that he carried this Christian mystic, Howard Thurman, in his pocket. I think of Jesus and the Disinherited as a text from yes, from Jesus and the Disinherited. I think of also, as we're just on the other side of Christmas, the work of Christmas and the writings that Christian mystics like him come up with. But I also think about the womanist tradition and womanism, where
Yes.
we get the images of a Dolores Williams, Sisters in the Wilderness, who look at the ways that Black women's spirituality has not been one thing. And it has
Yes.
also enabled access to a deep, deep and abiding relationship with the God of our weary years and the God of our silent tears. And
Yes.
even coming to the fore and to the forefront as one who is even watching with us tonight. And that is someone like a Reverend Dr. Anne Marie Mingo, who invites deeper conversations through the oral histories of people of faith who talk about the ways that their faith has been formed over time. I think of all of these very rich traditions of people who know the same God of the as followers of Jesus, but who invite us to expand our understanding of what it means to be people of faith.
Yes. Thank you, Reverend Gladden.
No, because I did. I like you said, you saw the falling away. I saw the numbers saying, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! I don't know what's going on here." So I want people
To bring it back.
to be assured that God can handle our questions that take us to the margins of what has been traditional faith, traditional Christianity. God can handle it. And I believe that God welcomes it. And so I honor you, Mom. I thank you for the ways that tonight you have really, really probed our consciousness inside out loving you. I think the people have experienced this. Y'all give comments down in the comment section now. Let my mama know that y'all enjoyed this and celebrate, thumbs up or something. Don't let mama leave here thinking that the people were like, know about that.
Okay.
Give us some encouragement that this has been all right with you now. See the people saying this is beautiful. Thank you. Don't leave tonight. And thank you, Maddie E. Sullivan, for getting the things that we were talking about into the chat, Teresa Avila. So if you missed what I said or you didn't write down, Miss Maddie Sullivan, Maddie Bailey Sullivan has gotten a number of those things there for you. So go ahead and stream back up and write back and read back up. And so be encouraged in your work that you're doing for the rest of 2020. Now, Hanukkah questioned God freely. God, that's right. Oh, Habakkuk questioned God freely. Yeah. So all of the prophets, the minor and the major prophets, a number of the texts that we have are those prophets questioning the ways that the people are encountering God and God's responses. So there is a tradition of questioning God that we ought not get away from.
You cannot grow closer to God, to the God of your formation, unless you continually question and stretch yourself and reach to know more about the God of the universe.
Yes, indeed. And so, again, friends, this has been our Inside Out Loving You Life Strategies conversation with Ms. Deborah Hawkins Wright, my mom, whom we are getting ready to bid adieu. We're going to send you backstage for a little bit. Don't leave the broadcast, but go ahead and say your farewells.
I just want to thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, daughter. It is such a pleasure to see the woman that you have grown to become. And I know there's so much more in your future. I wish you well on your PhD journey. I know that you have so much on your plate right now, but we're all so proud of you, and the sisterhood and the brotherhood. We're rooting for your continued success in ministry and anything else that you take on, all those things that are good to the soul.
Well, thank you, Mom. I will see you backstage in just a minute. But friends, I hope you have enjoyed our time tonight. Don't go anywhere. I promise you a announcement at the end. And so I want to remind you that normally at 15 minutes after the broadcast closes, I jump over to Clubhouse. But tonight is New Year's Eve. I don't think I'm going to do a Clubhouse tonight. I will hop over there just briefly. So if people are on Clubhouse and you want to come hang out with me just briefly, I'll come over there. But what I do want to do, I want to share something with you all that I hope you will appreciate. And let's see how you feel about it. So, friends, I hope you peeped that, if you will. This is not the end. This is the last show for this year. But beginning January 2021, every month on the 15th of the month at 8:15 p.m., you can find us right here for the Soul Situations. And so I want to bid you adieu. We hold you for an hour and we try to honor your time. Thank you so much to each and every one of you who have given your comments. Thank you so much for loving on me and loving on this work. Keep it in your prayers. If you are so led, sow into the ministry, sow into the work. You can visit www.goodtothesoul.com, where you can indeed make an investment, and you can find out all of the ways that we are continuing to honor God as we spend this time with you. But until January 15th, y'all take care, stay blessed, do those things which are indeed good to the soul. I will see you next month on January 15th at 8:15 p.m. Take care and God bless.